My name is Sana Ahmed. Thank you for joining me on today's webinar. The topic for discussion today is benefits of replacing physical tape with cloud storage. Joining us on this topic are subject matter experts from Amazon Web Services, including Daniela Becker, Senior Product Manager for AWS Storage Gateway, and Mary Quinn, Senior Go-to-Market Specialist for Storage Gateway. Before we begin, please note if you have questions, you can use the Q&A panel to ask those questions. The slides from this presentation will be made available to you as a PDF afterwards. For any questions we do not address, we will follow up with you over email. Let me turn it over to Mary Quinn to start the presentation, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Sana, and welcome everyone. We're going to talk with you today about the benefits of replacing physical tape infrastructure with virtual tape in a hybrid cloud storage environment, and how that allows you to take advantage of the scale, the flexibility, and the economics of the AWS cloud. This is the agenda for today's presentation. First, we're going to talk about the common challenges that are associated with maintaining physical tape as an archive mechanism. I'll introduce you to Storage Gateway, which is a family of gateway types. Daniela will give you an overview of Tape Gateway, which is one of the gateway types available through Storage Gateway. We have two case studies for you that highlight how Tape Gateway is being used by a few different organizations. Daniela will show you how easy it is to get started with Tape Gateway. And then I'll wrap up the presentation with a summary. And then we'll both be happy to respond to any questions that you may have. We're assuming that if you decided to attend this session, you probably have a tape problem. And it's a problem that you'd like to fix, but you've been continuing to put more time and more money into your legacy infrastructure and processes because you're not sure if there's a better way, a way that eliminates all the time people spend to maintain your tape environment, but a way that's also more cost-effective.
Thanks, Mary. So in the theme of this webinar around the benefits of replacing physical tapes, let's briefly recap what managing physical tapes actually entails. At the surface, there are generally these 5 components you see on the left. You have your offsite archive service, so basically where your tapes are stored. Then there is the tape media itself. When we speak with customers and ask them about what they think drives most of their cost when managing physical tapes, we often hear that the tape media itself is the primary cost driver in their mind. But in reality, it's often just one small part of the overall cost of managing physical tapes. We'll walk through an example calculation in just a second. The other components are maintaining and managing the robotic tape library, having an admin who is available pretty much 24/7 to manage the tapes. I'm sure we have some of those folks in the audience today as well. And finally, maintaining the tape library itself. Now, I mentioned that these elements we just went through on the left are really just a high-level picture of what it takes to manage physical tapes. Once you really start getting into the details, we've heard from customers that they start uncovering all these other items that also need to be taken into account. We've listed a few examples here on the right, but as I'm sure some of you have probably experienced personally, this list starts getting pretty long pretty quickly. So let's talk about what all of this effort translates into when it comes to the cost of managing physical tapes. So this is an example for a customer who writes about 100 terabytes to tapes every month, retrieves on average 1 tape per month, and has to retain their tapes for 1 year. With a classic physical tape library, this customer will invest in all of the previously mentioned tape library related items, such as media drives, cleaning cartridges, library maintenance, support, and of course, the offsite archive service itself. In this example, this amounts to costs of about $57,000 a year. And this is not even a fully burdened example. For instance, it does not include real estate, mechanical components, media migrations, or duplicate copies. And again, not to speak of the pretty common headaches that can come up along the way, such as, for example, tape damage. So if you are like many of the customers we speak to, then this cost of managing physical tapes is probably one of the main drivers of replacing physical tapes. And this is where Tape Gateway comes in. With Tape Gateway, this same customer would incur about $17,000 a year for storing the same amount of data in AWS instead of physical tapes. In other words, Using Tape Gateway can save you as much as 70% compared to using physical tape, which is less than a third of the price of doing it on your own. These cost savings alone really make it a no-brainer to switch over to using AWS instead of managing physical tapes. But that's not all. We will dive into the details of Tape Gateway in a second, but you can already see here that there are certain components of managing physical tapes that you don't have to worry about anymore when using Tape Gateway, such as maintaining the robotic tape library or physically shipping tapes back and forth from offsite storage. So there are a lot of reasons why many of our customers have found Tape Gateway to be a very compelling solution when looking to replace their physical tapes. Let's take a closer look at what Tape Gateway is and how you can benefit from using it. Tape Gateway is at its core a virtual tape library backed by AWS Cloud Storage. It emulates a physical tape library, meaning it presents virtual tapes, tape drives, and a media changer as a virtual tape library to your backup application. Through Tape Gateway, you can write to a collection of virtual tapes that is backed by the massively scalable Amazon S3. Tape Gateway integrates with Amazon S3 storage classes such as S3 Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, so that when you no longer require immediate or frequent access to data that is stored on a virtual tape, you can archive the tape in those storage classes. We see customers using Tape Gateway for both backup and archiving use cases. So they use Tape Gateway as a storage target directly from their backup application on a periodic basis, or they simply copy their backup store of on-premises storage to AWS using the tape copy function in the backup application. So let's talk about the main benefits of using Tape Gateway. Since tape is a four-letter word, we've grouped them into 4 categories so it's easy to remember for you. So at a high level, 1, Tape Gateway enables you to replace physical tapes. 2, you can easily manage your entire deployment from one place without leaving your desk. 3, Tape Gateway allows you to meet various security and compliance standards. And 4, Tape Gateway has built-in capabilities to make your tape backups and archives as efficient as possible. Let's dive into each of these categories in more detail. As we already saw, using Tape Gateway costs significantly less than using physical tape infrastructure. Tape Gateway provides a drop-in replacement for your physical tape infrastructure. It eliminates the operational burden of provisioning, scaling, maintaining, and upgrading your physical tape infrastructure. Tape Gateway scales seamlessly with your business needs and provides pay-as-you-go pricing compared to incurring an upfront capital expenditure, as we already saw in the example earlier. In the second class of benefits, Tape Gateway provides easy management. Tape Gateway is integrated with all leading backup software applications, making it easier for you to switch from using physical tape library backups to using virtual tapes on Tape Gateway. You don't need to change any of your backup workflows. Tape Gateway stores your tapes in Amazon S3, but you don't need to create and manage your own S3 buckets or set lifecycle policies to transition tapes between S3 storage classes. All of that is done for you by the Storage Gateway service. You only need to manage virtual tapes and the gateway itself, helping you adopt cloud much faster when you're probably juggling multiple projects at once and in a constant time crunch. By the way, we've made tape management even easier by recently introducing automatic tape creation, where you can set a configuration and tapes will automatically be created for you. Although you typically deploy the Tape Gateway on your premises, all management, monitoring, and software updates are done centrally from your AWS Management Console. And there are also multiple form factors to deploy your Tape Gateway depending on your needs. We'll review those a little bit later in today's presentation. Tape Gateway provides several security and compliance measures which are needed by our customers operating in different industries. Your archive tapes are marked as read-only, so you can be assured that no one can accidentally overwrite them during restore. Tape Gateway also allows you to create warm tapes, where warm stands for write once, read many. Warm-enabled virtual tapes ensure that data on active tapes in your virtual tape library cannot be overwritten or erased. With tape retention lock, you can specify retention mode and period on archived virtual tapes, preventing them from being deleted for a fixed amount of time or up to 100 years. Data transfer between your gateway on premises and AWS is encrypted using TLS. Tape Gateway also encrypts your tapes by default when stored in cloud. Tape Gateway is integrated with AWS Identity and Access Management, or IAM, so you can easily manage access to your gateways. And the service is also integrated with AWS Key Management Service, or KMS. You also have the ability to use your own keys to encrypt your tapes in the cloud. Finally, Tape Gateway is HIPAA eligible and PCI, SOC, and ISO compliant for our customers who operate in regulated industries. It is also FedRAMP compliant and supports FIPS 142 compliant endpoints, again, to protect sensitive information for regulated workloads. Finally, with respect to performance, Tape Gateway provides you the ability to cache your most recent backups locally and offer faster recovery so that you don't have to fetch data from the cloud as often. It also helps with reducing data egress costs. Tape Gateway also compresses the data prior to synchronizing with cloud. The data compression factor will depend on what type of data you're backing up and whether that's compressible or if another storage element has already compressed the data. With Tape Gateway, you control your destiny when it comes to restores. Rather than having to put in a special request for tape retrieval, as you would do with a physical tape when stored offline, with Tape Gateway, you can retrieve and archive tape on your own from the AWS Management Console and monitor the retrieval progress yourself. Tape Gateway supports all leading backup applications. And here's a list of all vendors whose backup apps are qualified for use with Tape Gateway. Chances are you're using one of these apps already today, and all you have to do is simply point these apps to use a virtual tape library on Tape Gateway instead of using a physical tape library. This list is constantly updated and expanded, so please refer to the link to get up-to-date information regarding supported backup applications. Next, we will walk you through 2 case studies of customers who are using Tape Gateway. It'll help you understand what pain points they had, why they selected Tape Gateway, and what benefits they have seen from using Tape Gateway. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you. So Southern Oregon University, it's a public liberal arts institution in Ashland, Oregon. They have about 6,400 students and about 1,000 faculty and staff. Both the students and the faculty can be anywhere in the world at any time, and IT has the responsibility for supporting them wherever they are. The goal of the IT organization there is to be responsive and increase and improve services without impacting the cost of the education that they provide. Their legacy backup environment included multiple backup applications. They backed up to disk and then to tape. And once on tape, they paid an outside vendor to cart their tapes off-site. And they had a problem at least every month. Either the problem was with one of the backup applications or with the tape library or with the files themselves. For recovery, they would reach out to the outside vendor who would locate the necessary tapes. The facility where these tapes were stored was in the same general area as their data center, so they had no geographic diversity. And once they had the tapes they needed in their possession, they would load them and they would start the recovery process. It was slow and labor intensive and costly. So they evaluated 3 options. First, just keep things running the way they were, but refreshing their hardware. Second, they looked at moving to a managed service provider. And then third, they looked at using AWS. They knew they wanted to keep Veeam. They were impressed with the low cost of AWS and the pay-as-you-go model and the ease with which they could get started. This slide shows an overview of the solution that their AWS account team worked with the university to implement. So Veeam works with Tape Gateway. Amazon S3 and then ultimately S3 Glacier would be the final destination for their backed up data. They use Veeam's tape backup functionality to back up to tape gateways. The tape gateways present themselves to Veeam just like any tape library, so Veeam could use the same process and the same drivers that it uses to interact with physical tape libraries. Once they built the tape gateways, they were able to just leave them alone. They just work every month. And with AWS, they're able to write to as many tape gateways as they want, and they can spin up new tape gateways very quickly. Today, they back up all the VMs that host applications and all their user data on Tape Gateway. Now the IT organization has saved money And they've been able to use their valuable staff in ways that has a positive impact on the educational environment and the student experience. Because they're not always dealing with problematic backups, they have that time. They have a stable backup and recovery architecture, and they achieve geographic diversity for their backed up data, so they have greater confidence in their protection. I'll hand it back to you, Daniela.
Thanks, Mary. Let's take a look at the second case study. This customer is a local authority in the UK. This means that they provide a range of services in their community, like social care, registered services, taxes, to a few thousand users, and a couple dozen of local schools. Their Tape Gateway use case is kind of a classic customer case in that prior to discovering Tape Gateway, all of their backups were done on premises, and specifically, they had a process of backing up particularly critical data onto physical tapes, putting them on a truck, and then storing that offsite on a monthly basis. So you might ask, why were they looking for a new solution at all? Well, when it came to their physical tape backups, they ran into different challenges, which some of you in the audience today may be able to relate to. For one, the data they needed to store was constantly growing. A good example in their case was that the authorities started digitizing all of their paperwork, mail, you name it, and all of those new files needed to be backed up and added to the overall volume of backups. Of course, with growing data, storing and retaining physical tapes became more and more expensive, while their budget did not necessarily expand in the same way. So growing amount of data and cost pressure was one reason they were looking to move away from physical tapes. Additionally, the tape robot they were using was going end of life, causing lots of ongoing maintenance for an IT team that was already strapped for resources. So they were looking for a solution that was easy to manage. And finally, they didn't want to change their entire backup infrastructure, but continue using their existing backup vendor and processes. In this case, they were also using Veeam, just like our previous customer, as their backup application. And using Tape Gateway, they were able to check all of those boxes. They could deploy the gateway on premises quickly and easily as a drop-in replacement for their physical tape backups. They didn't have to worry about the cost of continuously buying new tapes, and their IT team no longer had to spend time maintaining the tape robot, shipping off tapes, or fixing damaged tapes. And probably most importantly, they were able to save cost and turn their previous capital expenditures into operational expenditures, since with Tape Gateway, you only pay for what you use in a pay-as-you-go model. Something I would like to call out here as you may be thinking about deploying a Tape Gateway into your environment is that you can actually deploy Tape Gateway on a number of form factors. As shown in the leftmost column, you can deploy Tape Gateway on a VMware ESXi, Microsoft Hyper-V, or Linux KVM-based virtual machine. Typically, you would use this option in corporate data centers or offices when you have an existing VM infrastructure already and IT staff to manage and run those VM clusters. The second option here in the middle is to use an Amazon EC2 instance in AWS to run your Tape Gateway. We support a variety of instance sizes, and the gateway is available as an Amazon Machine Image, or AMI, on those instances. You will typically deploy Tape Gateway in EC2 when you have a need to use cloud as your disaster recovery option. The third option here, the hardware appliance, is typically used when you don't have an existing VM infrastructure or don't control the resources to deploy a VM, but you want a simple, out-of-the-box experience. So how does backup work with Tape Gateway? The Tape Gateway emulates a physical tape infrastructure in that it provides virtual tapes, 10 virtual tape drives, and a virtual media changer. The 10 virtual tape drives are presented to your backup software as SCSI targets over iSCSI. Once the backup software recognizes the tape drives and mounts the tapes into import-export slots, you can start backing up data to those tapes. When you're writing backups to the tapes, the data is stored on a virtual tape library on the gateway and also in S3. When you decide that you have completed your backup and no longer want to write to a particular tape, you can eject or export the tape from the backup app. This operation will cause the Tape Gateway to place that tape in read-only mode and move the tape from virtual tape library in S3 to S3 Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, depending on your configuration. This is similar to you ejecting a physical tape from the tape library and shipping it to an offsite storage location, but much easier. Now, your backup is done. Let me talk about how the restore of a tape works. Restore is a two-step process. For archive tapes in S3 Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, you have to first bring them into your virtual tape library in S3 using the Storage Gateway console or using the API using the CLI. The gateway retrieves the data from Glacier to the virtual tape library, typically within 3 to 5 hours, and from Glacier Deep Archive, typically within 12 hours. Once the tape is in the virtual tape library, you will be able to see the tape in your backup application. Now you can use the backup app to read data from the tape and do the restores. You can restore an archive tape either to any on-premises gateway, doesn't have to be the same gateway you used for the backup. If your backup app also replicates its metadata and catalog, you can also restore your tape in cloud by spinning up a gateway in cloud using Amazon EC2. Both of these methods are possible, and customers use whichever method they prefer and is best suited to meet their use case. We announced many new features fairly recently at AWS Storage Day, so let me tell you a bit more about these features. For one, we introduced the warm tape type and tape retention lock that we touched on earlier, but just to recap, write once, read many, or warm, enabled virtual tapes ensure that data on active tapes in your virtual tape library cannot be overwritten or erased. Tape retention lock allows you to specify a retention mode and period on archived virtual tapes, preventing them from being deleted for a fixed amount of time or up to 100 years. With these features, we've made it really easy for you to manage compliance and governance workloads and meet your tape retention policies. Schedule-based bandwidth throttling. This feature allows you to throttle the network bandwidth used by the gateway to synchronize on-premises data with AWS based on a schedule that you set on the gateway. This enables you to optimally use your network connection to AWS, regulating bandwidth used during peak time to minimize network congestion, and using all your available bandwidth during off-peak hours. So, great way for you to optimize your network connection to AWS. Finally, another recent enhancement we've made is increasing the local cache size of your gateway from previously 16 terabytes to 64 terabytes. So as mentioned earlier, the gateway maintains a local cache, providing your on-premises applications with low latency access to your most recently accessed data. Now, with up to 65 terabytes of local cache, you can manage even larger data sets closer to your on-premises applications. With that, I'll hand it over to Mary to wrap up.
Thanks. So today, Daniela showed you how easy it is to get started using the cloud for backups and archives by using Tape Gateway. And we discussed how Tape Gateway offers better data protection than physical tapes. Your data would be stored in Amazon S3, which offers 11 nines of durability, and your backed up application data stored across at least 3 availability zones. Availability zones give customers the ability to operate in a way that's more highly available, more fault tolerant, and more scalable than would be possible in just a single data center. And then finally, Tape Gateway optimizes your cost by offering you a pay-as-you-go model, and it eliminates the need to make large upfront capital investments in physical tape infrastructure. Tape Gateway compresses and stores virtual tapes in the lowest cost storage classes, making it possible for you to retain long-term data in the cloud at a very low cost. So with that, I want to thank you very much for joining Daniela and I today, and I'm going to hand it back to Sana.
Anyone who wants to learn more can go ahead and request a personalized technical tutorial for your organization on this topic. You can request an hour-long session, and groups from within your organization are welcome. Please indicate your interest in the survey that follows this presentation. We will spend the next few minutes covering questions. The first question is whether the slides will be available after this webinar. Yes, the slides from this presentation will be made available to you as a PDF afterwards. Mary, the second question is, can you explain pricing for Tape Gateway?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So there's a storage charge element, which is charged per gigabyte per month. And this would be the cost of storing virtual tapes in S3, S3 Glacier, or Glacier Deep Archive. There's also a charge per gigabyte for data written to AWS storage by your gateway. And this charge is capped at $125 per month per gateway. There's a charge for virtual tape retrievals and virtual tape moves. Again, this is a per gigabyte charge. And then finally, there's a prorated charge for early deletes, so virtual tapes deleted in less than 180 days. All these details are available on our website, along with a pricing calculator that's easy to use, and it can help you estimate your costs.
Thank you. Daniela, the third question is, what are the options to deploy Tape Gateway on premises?
Yeah, definitely. So with Tape Gateway, you have essentially 3 different options to deploy your gateway. One is to deploy it as a virtual machine using VMware ESXi, Microsoft Hyper-V, or Linux KVM. Another option is to actually deploy the gateway in cloud using Amazon EC2. And the third option is using the Storage Gateway hardware appliance, which is a physical appliance that you can order from AWS, and then you can just deploy it into your environment.
Great. Another question for you, Daniela, is how do I connect my gateway to AWS Cloud?
Yeah, great question. So as we were showing earlier, when you use the AWS Management Console to create your gateway, the wizard will actually walk you through every single step. So when you activate your gateway, you can choose how you want the gateway to communicate with AWS storage services. Most commonly, customers choose to have the gateway communicate over the public internet, but you can also use a virtual private cloud or VPC. Then you simply enter the IP address or activation key of your local gateway VM, and that will associate your gateway with your AWS account, and the gateway is connected to the AWS cloud.
Great. Daniela, one audience member is asking, I only want to use Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive for my tape archive to achieve lowest cost and minimal tape management. Can Tape Gateway provide this?
Absolutely. Tape Gateway is integrated with both Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive to provide you with the lowest possible storage costs. When writing backups to virtual tapes on Tape Gateway, data is stored in the gateway cache and stored in S3. To achieve lowest cost, simply export your tapes from the backup application as soon as your backup jobs are completed to move virtual tapes from S3 to Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive, depending on your configuration.
Thank you. Mary, another audience member is inquiring, due to the current working environment, including COVID-19, I'm unable to easily be on site if I have a tape media or library issue. Can Tape Gateway solve this for me?
Yes, great question. Tape Gateway solves this problem because it's a virtual tape library. You don't need to manage the loading and the unloading of physical tapes or rotating tapes with a vendor that manages your libraries off-site. You simply deploy a Tape Gateway on a virtual machine in your environment. You point your backup app to use it instead of the physical tape library, and that's how you'd get started.
Fantastic. Mary, the final question is, where can the audience learn more about Tape Gateway?
You know, our website has so much information on Storage Gateway in general and Tape Gateway specifically. There's a great description of all the features. It explains how pricing works. There's access to the pricing calculator. There's a tab with additional resources that includes things like documents, forums, diagrams. There's demos, tech talks. There's access to free training there. There's podcasts, there's other customer references, and there's some customer written blogs. I know there's a frequently asked questions section. You know, your AWS account team can also connect you with all of the information that you need.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. That is all the time we have for questions today. If we did not get to your questions, we will make sure we respond to you via email. Mary and Daniela, thanks again for joining us today. And to the audience, thank you for viewing this webinar. In addition, please visit our Raise the Bar on Data Protection with Cloud Storage webpage and view more content. Finally, we want to make sure we bring valuable content to you. Please take a moment to fill out the webinar evaluation form at the end of this webinar. We look forward to hearing from you to address more of your specific needs on a one-on-one basis through a tutorial conversation with our subject matter experts. Thank you again and have a wonderful day.